the fastest show in sports.
I'm a fan of the National Hockey League, and
Yeah.
I've become a fan of the National Hockey League much more in the last few seasons. Last 20 years, maybe. I've become much more of a fan. Because to me, it's an exciting game. It's unpredictable. The athletes are the best athletes in any team sport, period. End of story. Walk away. There is more drama that goes on in a hockey game than any other sport that can happen at any single second where games change. Which is why when we get down to this time of year, I am always finding it, and we talked about ratings here. The ratings are down on ESPN. Big ballyhoo headline I saw on one of the announcing sites. I think it's down like 25% on ESPN. They're averaging about 880,000, 900,000 viewers a game. It's down on TNT, and I got to tell you, the TNT crew, awesome. I mean, really.
I went to high school with Bush.
With who?
Brian Boucher.
Oh, okay.
Brian Bush, in between the benches, yeah.
They've just done marvelous. I mean, Albert and Olchik and Boucher and all of them, and the intermission team. Bissonnette has become a star just on being a real pain in the ass. God love him, but it's really become fun. But I can never understand why more people don't watch the Stanley Cup Playoffs. It's one of those things. It's been a conversation that's been going on for decades, where I'm told constantly, well, basketball's more popular. Basketball's more popular in the cities. It's more popular in the urban settings. You can't play hockey by yourself. You can play basketball by yourself. It takes a lot of money to play hockey. You need more equipment. All you need is a basketball, back and forth. I hear all these statements over and over again, but for sheer excitement, you cannot beat the NHL, period, end of story. And I don't understand why more people aren't into it. There has to be something behind this.
By the way, I kept waiting for period, like the guy Will did in the newsroom, that HBO show, when he went on one of his rants. But I got a point for you to make, or for me to make a point to you regarding ESPN right now. You said ESPN's ratings for ESPN is doing the West.
Correct.
So that is Dallas and Edmonton. Anytime you have a Canadian team in a conference finals, that network always sees a dip because a large chunk of your audience is coming from Canada. The Americans also, I don't want to watch. I don't agree with it. I'm telling you, that's what I've heard over the years. I, too, like you, Ed, am trying to find out why in the hell people don't watch the Stanley Cup playoffs. I'm dead serious.
I've heard all these arguments and all these discussions over the years, and I remember the first one I heard a long time ago. Well, it's played on ice. People can't skate. If I can't skate, I can't relate to it, but I can hit a baseball, and I can catch a football, and I can also throw a basketball into the hoop, but I can't play with a stick. I can't skate, so I can't get along with it. I can't identify with it. Most people who watch the Super Bowl couldn't throw a football 10 feet unless it's a Nerf football, and they're doing it with their families and stuff. People aren't athletic. What are you telling me, that the people who watch all the 4 major sports and the 16 major sports, whatever it is, are all athletic? That's why you like it? Nonsense. That's ridiculous.
I'm with you. I think the Canada aspect has something to do with it.
Yeah.
I am not a believer in that. Or I've never been able to study and find out why that is, but it does happen a lot. I've heard it. I remember doing it. Look, I remember being a young broadcaster up here in Boston on a radio station that couldn't operate a toaster oven. And I loved, and this was actually the first of 3 that I worked at.
1510 The Zone.
1510 The Zone. That is correct. Thank you very much. Let's get that one in. Correct. Started there. I love talking about hockey. And my producer said to us, he says, look, you guys can talk hockey and you're going to get callers for hockey, but you're only going to get the small segment of the population. Every other sports radio caller who's on hold or who's listening is going to tune out. When you talk hockey, even in a hub like Boston, we're just a hockey town back in the day. right? Even in a place like Boston, you talk hockey, you're only going to get a small faction of the listener, but they're going to be passionate and loyal. Everyone else goes click, and I don't know why it is.
Well,
I
part of
don't
the
get
reason
it.
is if you look at sports, the NFL has become a major success because they have learned how to market the sport, the game, the players when there's no games underway, when it's the off season. It is a
Right.
massive marketing deal where people cannot wait. Every single day you can pick up something about the NFL. Same thing about college football. They've done the same thing thanks to the gambling, thanks to also the recruiting issues on it. They
Yep.
keep it going 365. You don't do that in basketball, a little bit now maybe. You don't do that in baseball, certainly not, except for the winter meetings. But in hockey, they failed miserably when it comes to their marketing over the years. They haven't done it. They've got this little guy, they've almost got this little guy Napoleonic complex where they're just moving forward on a few things here and there instead of looking to be big and market their players. I think a lot of it is the players really don't want to get involved. The players in hockey are very private, very
Right.
family oriented. They don't get
Yep.
involved in a lot of stuff that they get a lot of publicity for. And I think that's to the detriment of the NHL and the players themselves. People don't know who these guys are. They have no
I agree.
idea.
I
You
agree.
know,
I
they're
agree.
learning more. They're learning more now. I got to give them credit. I mean, there's players out there like Connor McDavid you'll hear, and you'll hear so many of the others that are going on. And Ovechkin lights him up this year, and Brad Marchand, what he's doing with the Panthers right now. But most people wouldn't know a hockey player if they stepped on him.
I agree. I agree 100%. You said a couple of things there that I want to go back to. I remember my dad. My dad ran into a hockey player. He used to work next to the Boston Garden, and he ran into a hockey player, or he ran into Mike Lynch at Channel 5. And he says, "Hey, I got a question. Why does it seem like hockey players are the nicest guys out there?" He says, "Well, A, they are the nicest usually. B, they're also the lowest paid out of all the four sports." And it kind of humbles you for a little bit.
They're more
They also
appreciative, I think.
maybe that's a better word. Great word. They're more appreciative of what they have. It takes a lot of effort in that one. I'm with you. I'm with you there. Um, it does drive me nuts. It drives me nuts. I know you rattled off a bunch of reasons. It's always been confounding, right?
Well,
Is that maybe this?
there's another one in here. To me, when it comes down to the other sports, let's just look at them against the. Let's just go with four major sports for right now. Okay, wait a minute. We'll even go with five. Let's go with soccer and put it
Right.
in there for what it is right now, okay? Out of these sports, only the National Hockey League has a game where anything can happen that changes the game in seconds. And it continues along
Yes.
that way. It's here. 3 seconds you're down the ice. 3 seconds you're over here. 5 seconds you're here. Players are changing. Offense and defense. The players are moving constantly. The chessboard pieces are never still in hockey. In baseball, sitting still. Football, get set, throw a play, get set, throw a play. Basketball, short stops, short bursts here and there. It's not nearly as, in my opinion, it's not nearly as fast a game as it used to be. I could be wrong there as well. But you're still getting to the point where it's get to the end of the floor, stop, pop, shoot, come back,
There's
wait,
a rhythm.
stop, pop, shoot, foul, everything stops. Nothing stops in hockey. It
No, there's a
continually
rhythm.
moves. That's thrilling,
It is, but also now I understand where you're going.
but it's confusing.
It is confusing. So that's where the brains, for some people, they'll sit back and watch and say, "I have no idea what I just watched." If you ever want to win a fan base, you need to have that person say, "I have no idea what I just watched, but that was awesome." If you ever get that out of someone, that means you've hooked them. I remember the first time I ever saw a UFC fight. I had no idea what the UFC was. No clue. I'm dead serious.
You mean
I was a
human
boxing guy
cockfighting?
like you. Huh?
Human cockfighting?
Yes, I get human cockfighting. I get it, buddy. I get it. You hate it. I
I
understand
do.
it.
I do.
I know. But hang on. I'm a boxing guy like you. I loved boxing. Shit, 30 years ago, I could probably name you every champion at all the belts because there were only like 6 or whatever there were.
Exactly.
I knew that. I knew them all. Now, but the first time I saw UFC, I'm not a diehard junkie of UFC, but the first time I saw it, I went, holy shit, I don't know what that is, but that was awesome. And then I wanted to see it again. You brought up another point as well regarding marketing for the NFL, like what the NFL does. This was something that I'm glad I didn't do a talk show, Ed, when I was at ESPN. I'm glad I did games, because the game is always going to be the show. Every talk show at ESPN Radio, if you were to listen for a week, and it's the beginning of every hour, it's going to open with an NFL segment. It's fucking May.
Why?
Going on June.
There's two reasons why. Two reasons why. Go ahead.
Two reasons. Ready? Number one, the moment you say NFL, the ear in the car or the ear wherever goes, till it's like the little puppy dog looking for the treat.
That's true. Looking for the treat. Yeah.
Right? Every ear just goes ding, 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 ding. They heard go for right. They heard that's what every person heard. Want to go for right? The other aspect is, given where the NFL is, every fan thinks they can manage their team better at that sport, or they going to have an influence on
the
it.
Fantasy side of things.
The fantasy side of things, correct. Everyone is now I saw a commercial or for someone to start doing your fantasy football draft. You fucking serious? Come on!
In May.
In May! A fantasy football draft? Stop! Get a goddamn life, people!
Well, you can't say that. Wait a minute. Fantasy is what drove the NFL to the heights that it is today, including kept baseball alive for a long time. Because everybody thinks they can do it better than anybody else, but it's part of the what? The gambling side of things. Because I'm going to go back decades when I was doing talk shows in Miami and national talk shows as well. We couldn't talk about fantasy. We couldn't. Management didn't allow us to do it because it was seen as gambling.
Oh, okay.
So you couldn't do it. It was part of the whole gamble issue. So we didn't talk. But then it started to creep in because management started to do it on the sly. They said, come on, let's sneak a little in here right now and talk a little of this. It made huge money for everybody. That was the beginning of the gambling side of things. Because that's what it is.
You couldn't do the Brent Musburger, Jimmy the Greek. Hey, Greek. Giants are favored by 6 at home against Philadelphia. What do you think? And the Greek and Jimmy says, and by the way, this is where I fell in love with gambling. Coming home from church on Sunday mornings, watching the NFL Today, and Jimmy the Greek says, I think the Giants are going to win by 2 touchdowns. And it's like, oh shit! And next thing you know, the Greek's right. It's like, hey, I like this guy.
That was all the beginning of it, and then you came right down to fantasy. So that's why, I never played fantasy. Fantasy football, fantasy baseball. I never got involved in it because I just wasn't interested. I was busy covering the games and talking about them and stuff. And I kind of looked down my nose a lot of times at those who did fantasy. Nothing more than another band of degenerate gamblers. That's all. You're interested in the game not because of the game and the purity of itself, but you're interested in the game because you can make money. Boy, was I off. I mean, I was sitting on my high horse at the time, and I missed it completely. I admit it. But fantasy is what drives a lot of these things right now.
I agree.
That's what. Now there is another reason why, and let's go back to the hockey issue. Fantasy football, huge. Fantasy baseball, huge. Fantasy basketball and hockey and soccer.
Hang on, ready? Fantasy basketball. Not as big as the other two, but bigger than hockey. You could probably find me. I could probably find 5 people in my town that maybe play fantasy hockey. Wouldn't you have a clue how to start it?
Why? Now, is it because there's not enough statistics to bet on? No, there's actually a lot of stats that you can bet on here. Statistics. So
I don't know, Ed.
I don't know what the reason there is.
I don't either. Actually, hang on. Let's go to something we've talked about. How many times do you hear fantasy hockey marketed? Never. You don't.
Never.
Fantasy baseball and fantasy football have already done their guerrilla marketing. You don't need guerrilla marketing anymore. Those are they're now staples in America. I mean,
See, in
there's
the
a 30.
No, the National Hockey League, and I happen to know some of the people there in the front office and some of the people who are involved in this, and they're old friends, haven't talked to them in years, but I know them, they're good people. But they failed miserably when it comes to promoting this sport
Yes.
12 months out of the year. You don't hear about, you will hear now, for instance, in the last 24 hours, we've heard about the World Championships, and people are talking about it. And you have American players who are there, and NHL players are there. And Jeremy Swayman, who plays for the Boston Bruins, is playing for the U.S. team. And they made a big.
Is that the one we just won for the first
Yeah.
time in 92 years? Yeah.
Yeah, the U.S. won the championships. Swayman, who got beat up this year with the Bruins for a number of reasons, partially Bruins, partially him, he went 7-0 in the nets. That's huge. I mean, that's huge news. A guy coming back, and he's undefeated in the World Championships or a World Championship.
By the way, you want to know something? That night, never saw a highlight on SportsCenter.
Never.
Never saw a highlight.
Never. But if it was a World Basketball Championship, you'd see wall-to-wall highlights on it. Because
would have led the show with Steph and LeBron.
Okay, and why? There's one big reason there. ABC, ESPN, Disney has a huge financial stake in these sports, in the NFL, in basketball, in all of these other sports. They do not have a huge financial stake, nor do they look at the National Hockey League as a big moneymaker. To them, it's nothing more than we got it. We'll get 1 million people in here. We'll sell some ads. We'll make them happy. They don't look at it, and the NHL doesn't push for it. The NHL needs to be more aggressive in getting their players and their teams out there.
I remember two things. Number one, when the NHL came back to ESPN, so NBC's contract expired a few years ago, and the NHL went to Turner and ESPN. Gary Bettman was on the morning show, or maybe he was on with Mike Greenberg, and he says, look, if you guys do as well promoting us as you did shutting us out all these years, we're going to be fine. And by the way, that's a little shot, but he was right.
He was right.
Why you come back to a powerhouse like that. Here's another thing. I had an executive tell me, or a boss tell me I want to say 10 years ago at ESPN, you started hearing the rumblings of, I'm like, why aren't we getting any love from Major League Baseball? I mean, ESPN Radio, Scott, we're the only entity at ESPN that had Major League Baseball's postseason. It was ESPN Radio. ESPN Radio carries every game of the postseason. ESPN Television, once the wild card round is done, ESPN Television is out.
Yep.
They're done. It goes to Fox and Turner, right? Why don't we get the love? And the answer I was given was, Kevin, in about 10 years, you're going to see this network basically solely cover football and basketball. We're going to become a football and basketball network.
It's all about the money.
And look what's happened. Only reason you're getting hockey is because you're fresh into a contract. When that contract's up, I'm going to be very curious what happens. Obviously, look what they're doing for baseball. Now, granted, they were overpaying through the wazoo for Sunday Night Baseball, and they had to get rid of that because Amazon Prime was paying like $750 million when when ESPN was paying like something, maybe $1 billion. It was just dumb. So they had to bounce out of that contract. But the idea that there may be no playoff games on ESPN Radio, executives just don't seem to care because we're going to have the NFL and basketball. We'll be fine. And honestly, I think that's what TV people believe nowadays. As long as you need to have some stake in the NFL or in the NBA. Why does NBC go back to the NBA, Ed? Why did they go back?
Money.
There are money. Those are the two sports that are driving all
That's
this.
what everybody does. I mean, come on, that's an old story. I mean, look, Sunday, it was fun because it was those of us who like motorsports, we call it the triple, where on the Sunday before Memorial Day, you would be able to watch the Formula One Monaco Grand Prix in the morning. You switch then to the Indianapolis 500 in the afternoon, and then you go to the Coca-Cola 600 NASCAR at night. It was a brilliant day for those, and I'm not as much of a motorsports fan as I used to be. I still like it, but I'm not going to sit there and watch it unless it's the Indy. I'll watch the Indy
You
500
watch
from
the Indy? Okay.
start to finish, because that at 230 miles an hour coming down the straightaway, that's one of the most exciting things in sports, period. But you had that day where you would be able to watch on the networks.
Sure.
We were just hanging around Sunday night watching some stuff. I said, hey, let me go ahead and catch a little bit of the Coke 600. I flipped around, and I flipped around again. Where is it?
Couldn't find it.
Well, let me see. It's not on CBS. It used to be CBS. It's not NBC. It's not ABC. It's not Fox. It's not
TBS?
ESPN. It's not CW. Where is it? You know where it was?
No.
Amazon. I didn't even know it. I had no clue where this race was being held. I had to look it up, and then I had to go, we get Amazon, so I went there to watch it for a little while. But I'm thinking about, do fans really want to pay this extra freight, which is where it's going now, because if it comes down to watching every sport, it's all going to be pay-per-view very soon. Everyone is going to be, you're not just going to be able to watch anything for free anymore. Look, I said this decades ago. I said, wait until the National Football League becomes a sport where every game is going to be pay-per-view. You will watch every single game. You'll get maybe 1 or 2 free games, but that's it. Everything else, where are we? Everything is pay-per-view right now. You can watch anything you want, but the fan's got to pay for it. And does the fan want to pay for it? In the case of the NFL and motorsports and NBA, I guess they do. They're making money.
Yep, agree.
So, but from the hockey side of things, and we'll wrap on this because we'll talk about it again down the road. To me, the National Hockey League player is the finest athlete in any sport, any team sport, period, dead stop. Because what they have to go through, the physicality of the game, playing offense and defense, the speed of the game, having to be involved in certain plays, having to come off the ice, do a minute and a half, come out, get spent, go back on again, the continued changes that go on. But it's the absolute speed and physicality of the game that cannot be matched in any other sport. I've heard some people go that, well, you can make it sort of akin to soccer. No, it's not. Soccer, you can still take a minute. You can get a breather coming up the field. It has an ebb and a flow. Hockey has an ebb and a flow, but it's moving at 80 miles an hour. Yeah, so to me, there is no more exciting sport than hockey. So when people tell me hockey's boring, I go, get out of here.
Look, hang on. If you say hockey's boring, I'm sorry. You don't know the game, and nor are you willing to learn the game.
Well, that's part of it too.
You're confused. And just don't tell me hockey's boring. Tell me you're confused and you don't understand the sport.
I don't know what the confusion level is.
You say that. Huh? I
don't get it. When people say I'm confused and I don't know the rules and I don't know what I just saw, what are you missing? Offside is easy to tell. Icing is easy to tell.
Hang on.
Oh, come on.
It's a lot easier now. How about back when they had 2-line passes?
Well, okay, but again, you're talking history. I'm talking now.
I know. I get it. I understand what you're saying.
It's simple. It's simple. Just like in football.
I think you're also you're being a little too harsh on the fan who doesn't know the game because you're trying to defend the sport you love.
Well, then just learn the game. What's wrong with that? Can we no longer learn games anymore?
By the way, that takes effort and want to.
Well, it takes effort and you've got to want to do it. That's exactly right. But I'm saying, look, in football, offside is easy. Here's the line. If you're on the other side of the line, before the ball moves, that's offside. In hockey, here's the line.
Well, it depends. Now, hang on, is it my body or is it the puck?
If the player is completely in the other zone, if the player's in the other zone before the puck gets there, you preceded the puck. It's easy. It's not that hard.
That's all, folks.